Hey, New Patient Group Nation, this is Brian Wright, founder and CEO of New Patient Group and the host of the New Patient Group podcast. Appreciate you listening. You know, I've always said to a lot of people that if you change the lives of people, then you have a business, all right? And a great quote by Richard Branson here, who's obviously a famous entrepreneur and CEO of a lot of companies. And the reality is you can do that in the practice environment in two ways. You guys really change the lives of people, obviously clinically. We as a company, I as a person, have the utmost respect for the clinical abilities out there. We always joke when I speak all over the world is God knows you don't want me in your mouth, no matter what the situation. And you really have the opportunity. It's easy when we talk about practice growth and numbers and collections and new patients and all the things that go into it. It's easy to lose focus of what we're all in this for. Is the patient, is the consumer, is that person that you literally change the lives. But there's another way to change the lives of people as well. It's not just the clinical. And what you see on the screen here represents more than really 80% of what occurs inside your practice on a daily basis, on any given day. And they're also the things, and there's studies that I'm going to get into that are proven why people buy from you. And it all relates back to the experience you provide. The things you see here, new patient phone call, time management, 5-star customer service, digital marketing, hospitality, how you run the business as an entrepreneur, how you get the most out of your people, hold people accountable, financial presentation, consumer psychology, just overall presentation skills. And then the dirty word in healthcare you see is sales. And when I say sales, we talk about sales fundamentals all over the place. And that all sales means is you're able to educate in an ethical, truthful manner in order to place more value on what it is you offer over another place where that consumer can spend their disposable income. Because we all know what happens. They say they can't afford it, then they walk down the street and they buy a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 flat screen TV from Best Buy. So it is your responsibility to know how to sell your service in a way that places more value than, quote unquote, the next guy. And all these commercial skill sets that you see are not only what we specialize in as a company, but they're really what makes up the majority of your operation that has nothing to do with healthcare. And the beauty is that we believe that you can give that great clinical expertise. And it's actually enhanced by the commercial side, because if you're able to start more treatment, more people are saying yes to you, then you only get to change more lives from the clinical side of things. Now, the unfortunate thing is, and I think we can all agree that it's unfortunate, is the better business, the better CEO is now defeating the better clinician and the better practice. There's a lot of examples of this that I'm going to talk about here momentarily. And it, of course, is unfortunate. But the reality is that is why those commercial things that we specialize in that I'm talking about have never been more important. Because if you don't specialize, if you don't conquer those things, and again, those things have nothing to do with the practice atmosphere. They're foundational. From a hotel to a restaurant, those things apply. And therefore, we believe you need true expertise in those things rather than somebody that comes from inside the clinical practice environment. Now, the beauty is we know how to apply those things to the practice environment because we know the practice inside and out. Now, there's a couple reasons why the better clinician is now being defeated by the better business. There's things that are happening and why those commercial skill sets are so important. There's things that are happening. Two main ones that I'm going to talk about is competition and a rapidly changing consumer. Okay. The other day, it's been a little while ago now, Dr. Howard Farran was on my podcast, the New Patient Group podcast, and he made a comment about there's one practice per 1,850 people right now. And I got to thinking about a dental economics stat that came out that talks about how only 50% of consumers actually visit a dentist. So when you take what Dr. Farran said and then you take this study by dental economics, the reality of the situation is it increases competition even more because there's actually today one practice per 925 people because you have to cut what he said in half in order to make that statement really true because of that dental economics stat. Now, it goes far beyond that, all right? We're big believers, obviously, to practice down the street doing what you do, or maybe a practice down the street trying to undercut you on whatever, maybe clear aligners or whatever it might be. Of course, that's your competition, but it goes far beyond that. What really your competition is things like you see on the screen. The average 18-year-old viewing more than 10,000 marketing messages on any given day. Now, this study is particular to 18-year-olds, but this also applies. There's plenty of studies by Forbes and other famous publications that really talk about the same stat for millennials and older generations because we live on our phones. We live on internet-based computers all the time. And the reality is any company that is placing more value by staying on the mind of the consumer at higher levels than you, that is your true competition. That's why, do I buy clear aligners or do I buy a flat screen TV? Do I buy a new car, a family vacation? It's always why we say that anything that's in your waiting room that has these things in it, your competition is front and center. We suggest getting rid of it. It's just one of those commercial intricacies of internal marketing that can be so powerful if you keep the consumer mind in your waiting room on the right thing, okay? So the reality is competition goes far beyond that as well. But just for purposes today, what I want to talk to you about is the second one that's really dynamically changing healthcare. And it's not just healthcare, it's changing all businesses. And there's some stats we're about to jump into, and that is the changing consumer. Look, the reality of the situation is the consumer dictates the marketplace. And even in the clinical environment, it's reality. And there's all kinds of things that prove how the consumer is changing, both inside healthcare and out. Here are some obvious examples out. We all know the yellow taxi cab story. They had 30 years to create a digital platform, didn't, and now all they want to do is complain about Uber. Blockbuster, the founders of Netflix went to Blockbuster and pitched them their idea, and Blockbuster said, we're fine. And we know what the rest of the story. Victoria's Secret recently announcing they're closing a lot of stores. Forever 21 with a possible bankruptcy. The reality is this is what competition and consumerism does to businesses. And it also happens, and it's happening inside healthcare, and I'll get to that here momentarily. But the reality of the situation is everyone you see on the screen here, they all have one very common thing, is that they waited until they felt the pain. And you guys know out there that if a patient waits till they feel the pain, afterwards, it's going to cost them more money, and basically it's too late. And it's no different for companies out there. If you're an entrepreneur, you own your dental practice, orthodontic practice, you have a restaurant, whatever it is, if you wait until you feel the pain, it is too late. And inevitably, what you see on the screen, it happens. You've got to hit it before, and it is happening. And this is an orthodontic practice example from Chris Benson, and he has great statistics. I love Chris. And that the reality of the situation is in 2018, orthodontic practices, they only grew revenue an average of 1.5%. Basically, the whole industry was stagnated. Now, this is also very relatable to dentistry. It's also very relatable to other professions as well, other than dentistry and orthodontics. The reality is growth is down. And it's down because of this consumer. They are finding you differently, and they are deciding whether or not to buy and or refer other people to you in different ways. Let's look at this. Almost 100% of my searches online begin on YouTube or another video-based platform. That's a Gen Z statistics from Forbes. But again, this statistic is also millennial-based. It's also older people-based. I always give my mom's about 68 years old, and she lives on Facebook, lives on videos. And they are finding you differently, all right? Google bought YouTube for this reason. Your YouTube and Google, your search results are intertwined with each other. It's eventually going to be, Google's even said this, that YouTube's going to surpass them as the largest search engine in the world in 3 years. Think about that for a minute. People go to video-based platforms to find your business. So are you producing video content? Are you keywording it right? Do you spend for search engine optimization on YouTube just as much as Google? Because if not, there's a glaring hole in your business today, but it's going to cause major problems in the future because it's going to be a requirement to be found on Google by doing videos on YouTube. They're heading in that direction. This statistic proves it among many others. Now, who is Gen Z? Well, right now, they're about 1995 to 2005 is when they're born. They're the first generation to be born into an all-digital world. And even if your practice is one out there that, this is not a target market, the point of this is where everything's going. Because a lot of the Gen Z stats, again, apply to millennials, apply to older generations as well. And Gen Z now is old enough to have kids, so their kids are going to be changing as well. You've got to remain ahead of it, which is why you've got to have a company that specializes in the consumer, specializes in knowing how to grow businesses in a competitive marketplace. Now, let's look at some stats. 88% of consumers are willing to pay more for a great customer service experience, and by the year 2020, customer service experience will overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator, a study from Walker. 70% of consumers not only want, they expect a personalized customer service experience, again from Walker. 88% of consumers say they're more likely to do business with a company that delivers a personalized experience. Now keep in mind, everything I'm talking about are studies done in and out of healthcare. A mistake made by a lot of clinicians I see speaking all over the world is that This doesn't apply to the practice. I'm a clinician. And while I have the utmost respect, again, for your clinical abilities, the reality of the situation is it absolutely applies. You deal with a consumer. They have choices. This one's my favorite. Almost 90% of people surveyed, according to Harris Interactive, choose and or remain with a business for the quality of their customer service rather than the quality of whether or not their services are even good. The food, your clinical abilities. This is all taken in and out of healthcare. This is what we live in today. An important thing that you need to know, though, is what is customer service? You've got to know the definition because it's not your people smiling and being nice. Of course, that's part of it. But 5-star customer service, true 5-star customer service, means in the beginning of this is the definition. You as your business have to get what you want from your respective clientele. That is the beginning part of 5-star customer service. You think the Ritz-Carlton just does stuff to do stuff? No. Everything is done in a way for them to get what they want at higher levels. Now, at the same time, this is why very few companies achieve the 5-star customer service rule definition, is because at the same time, your clientele need to believe they receive more than they would have expected via every interaction with your business. Now, how do you do both? You do both through insane training from customer service experts. You don't walk around and smile, I say. Again, that's part of the journey, but a very small part of the journey. Starbucks is a great example, so I have the coffee down there. I also have a great story that goes along with it whenever I keynote speak. But the reality of the situation is Starbucks, I'm going to have a slide that's going to talk more about this in a minute. Starbucks doesn't have the best coffee of all the coffee shops, but they have the best experience. They know how to get what they want while delivering more than you expected. And here's two. This is one on the commercial side and one on the clinical side. Smile Direct Club right now, growing like crazy. A lot of clinicians are not happy with that, but the reality of the situation is they are conquering the commercial side of their business. The instant gratification, the experience, the unique experience on the non-clinical piece, the sales side, all the things that your practice needs to thrive in, that's what they thrive in. The beauty part for you is if you thrive in those things too, you can offer an exceptional clinical experience. There's all kinds of ways to take advantage of Smile Direct Club's growth for your practice. So rather than complain about it, don't be the yellow taxi cab that has years to do stuff to stay ahead and doesn't, and then complains about a Smile Direct Club. Be the ones that innovate and take what Smile Direct Club is doing and do it better because you can do the clinical side better. Conquer the commercial side. Starbucks, again, not the best coffee, but the best experience. And when you think of coffee, I think most people, Starbucks, a little cartoon image comes out in your mind. How do you create that brand? Well, one, you've got to know all this stuff I'm talking about, but two, you also have to know what an experience is. People always talk about, you got to give an experience, you got to do this. And I laugh. I'm like, okay. I think everybody knows they've got to give a good experience, but the problem is people don't even know, rarely do they know, what the definition of customer service is. They also don't know what the definition of an experience is. Until you know the definition of these things, it's not possible to actually provide it. So what is an experience? It's the unique ability to approach and react to each customer individually throughout the customer journey. And it goes way beyond what you actually sell. It goes way beyond moving teeth. It goes way beyond the crown that you put in someone's mouth. Because the reality is moms and dads at the soccer games are not opening up their mouth and going, hey, Timmy, look at this great rotation of a bicuspid. Or Mrs. Jones, hey, check out this unbelievable high-quality crown that Dr. So-and-so put in my mouth. Now, that's what they should be doing, but the reality is they don't. They talk about the commercial side of things because that's what they can relate to. And this has nothing to do with being a great clinician not being important. It's extremely important. It ties into this overall patient journey that we like to take clients through. From acquisition to conversion to referrals to loyalty and all those things. There's very specific things, and being a great clinician is a big part of it. But the reality is that in order to be a great clinician, your team and you have to get them to buy into you first. And that's all done through this unique ability. Now, all this being said, I believe now is the greatest time ever to own a practice because it represents such a unique opportunity to do the things that most business owners just flat out won't do. Does it take some work? Of course it takes some work. In order to get any business on what I call growth autopilot, of course it takes some work. Part of it, that's what we talk about on the podcast. It's how the famous companies become famous. And they don't do it because they want to become famous. They do it, and after they do it, they become famous because so few companies are willing to commit to it. It's just the reality of the situation. So if you commit to a new mindset in order to achieve new results, there has never been a better time. And these numbers prove it. These numbers prove it. You're looking at a stagnated growth rate in dentistry, according to that study I was talking about earlier. But over the past 12 months, this is what our clientele has done. One on the bottom right is my personal favorite because I've taught it all over the world. How you crush the competition while spending far less than them on growth. And our clients in the past 12 months has averaged an increase in revenue of over 30%, over 31% actually. They've increased their new patients almost 30% on average. Their same-day starts almost 50%, while decreasing the money they're paying on pay-per-click and other needless outside advertising expenses over 62%. And they do it all because of what you're looking at on the screen, by creating unique memories and a unique experience via every aspect of the appointment process, and doing so with what I call the 3 pillars of business success, which is what we do under one roof. Now, whether it's we're working with you to do digital marketing, to create a better brand, a customized digital marketing program, website design, social media, YouTube marketing, we want to make sure that every single piece of your digital marketing there provides a unique experience, a memorable experience. Maybe we're working with you on the training side of it. The new patient phone call, financial presentation, new patient experience, customer service, exam room flow, all of this stuff. What if they don't buy? How you follow up with them with your pending treatment? Because that alone can grow you 6 figures a year if you have a follow-up system that's done right. Or maybe it's we're working with you on how to build a better culture, be a better business person, function like an entrepreneur. Maybe we're working with you on all of them, but the point is it all ties back into unique, memorable experiences. And together we can do that for the consumer, because every touch point they have to come in with your business. From before they call, to the time they call, to the time they show up, etc., they need to go wow. And all of those commercial things are what gets them to go wow. And that's what we specialize in here. Here's to your success. Thanks for listening today and visiting our website. Would love for you to watch or listen to our podcast. You can find that on iTunes, just on our website. If you go to newpatientgroup.com/podcast. Looking forward to working with you guys out there. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.